unlocking your world of creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson. This episode is brought to you by White Cloud Coffee Roasters, nestled in the heart of Idaho's mountain wilderness, where every bean tells a story of adventure. Discover the difference in their premium beans, meticulously roasted to capture the essence of the mountains. Now, listeners of our podcast can get an exclusive 10% discount. Just use the promo code CREATIVITY at checkout. Visit whitecloudcoffee.com and use the code CREATIVITY.
Well, welcome back, friends, to our podcast, Your World of Creativity. This is the podcast where we explore the creative process and innovation across all sorts of industries. We've been on this global journey for, just over 5 years now, speaking with authors and singer-songwriters, inventors, restaurateurs. And we're going to take a different angle today on the restaurant business, and we're going to look at the creative side, but also the financial management side of the food industry. And my guest is Marta Grumberg. She's with Grumberg Accounting in Charlotte, North Carolina, specializing in all sorts of bookkeeping, payroll, tax consulting, focused on the restaurant, bar, and catering industry. So it's going to be a great discussion. Marta, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
And there's all sorts of financial insights and structures and growth ideas and hidden costs. And maybe that hidden cost is where I'd love to start. Restaurant owners, and including myself, I have this little coffee shop here in Eagle, Idaho. But we often focus on the front of the house, the experience, the great offerings, the food, the beverages. But what about those hidden costs behind the counter, back in the kitchen, that could trip us up?
That's true. Yeah, I was thinking about payroll and hidden costs because it's a huge topic among managers. Everyone talks about qualified employees, the turnover of the industry, but the hidden cost is the way of stopping. What do I mean by saying stopping? When business is booming, maybe summer or the holiday, sales go up and managers are slow to hire and they're maximizing profits. Fewer employees means higher earnings per person. The employees are happy that they have better tips. The owners are happy, and it's a win situation. But then there comes the slow season. Now managers struggle to cut back. They remember how tough and hard it was to build the team, build the relationship, hire qualified employees, and they slow to cut down. That's when payroll expense eat into cash reserves. And it's not just cutting hours. It's about planning ahead. You need to plan ahead and understand that the slow season is coming and cut into the staffing part, which is hard. And by the time you start doing that, all your reserves are gone. So it's interesting how payroll might have hidden cost inside.
Yes.
There's another thing like the slow period of the day, not of the season. I always tell my clients the most expensive thing in a restaurant is an empty table. You know how you have this big fancy evening going on and you're getting ready half of the day? That's a problem because the fixed costs are there to stay and you have to have a minimum staff that you pay payroll. So I always say be creative, offer happy hours, promotions, anything to bring people into your restaurant during those hours. Because that's the balance. Managing the balance is a key for the long-term success, to make sure you're balanced, your profits are balanced, and you utilize every second of your open hours.
Boy, that's so good I had one guest describe it as you're the landlord of the seats. You have to make sure that table is full, don't you?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I'm going to adapt it.
Yeah, there you go. You're also touching on something about the people, the labor, the payroll. And you're right. It's hard to find the right people that you want on your team. And so we very much are protective of those people because we don't want to lose the people. We don't want to cut the hours. We don't want to have the tips go down. How do you find that your clients balance that?
I call them and I tell them you have to cut. And they say, okay, then don't do it right away. That's how it works. But I'm there to watch the numbers all the time. So I keep nagging and keep explaining that the strong season is coming up, but we have to make sure that we have that cushion and to keep the restaurant profitable. I think having me on the behind the scene helps them to realize it faster and understand that faster. And there's always another season, and sometimes, anyways, it's hard to keep the team because everybody knows that there's a high turnover among the employees, the servers, and everybody. So it is what it is, and you have
Yes.
to make this decision and cut it.
Yeah. And you're also mentioning with the season, cash flow is always a challenge. You've got to buy the ingredients, you've got to know that you're going to be paying the people, and yet we've got to make sure that the business is coming in, right? What are some of ways that you counsel your clients in managing very practical ways that we can manage cash flow?
I always say it's all about timing, when money comes in versus when money comes out. So within the restaurant industry, you get the payments, the money in immediately, like maximum 48 hours for the credit cards payments. And in most cases, your vendors are set up for net 30, net 60 terms. So by the time you get to pay, let's say with a good season, by the time you get to pay your vendors, your season is over. So you have all this cash. The problem is the other way around. When the season is over and you get to the payment, the season is already slow. So your cash flow is not the same. So that means you need to plan ahead. You need to set some money aside, not get dividends for everything. Set some money aside, set a cushion for the slow season. And then when you go from the slow season to the strong season, you will see that your cash flow is increasing and everything is great. And then again, get prepared to the slow season. So my job is to be there and say, hey, nobody gets more than that. We put it aside. We make this cushion. We make sure you stay in business during the slow period.
Because we know these other expenses are coming.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. It's important to stay stable, financially stable year round, and not just during the booming season. I've seen restaurants almost closing because of that.
Mm.
And that's sad and painful. So it's something that you can manage. It's something that you can prepare ahead and budget ahead. It's common to all the restaurants, to the whole industry, so you can handle it.
Yes. And you bring up an interesting thing because so many times we see a restaurant or a bar that we think, oh, wow, they've been really successful. They're always busy. They've got a great clientele. How come they went out of business?
They spend the money during the high season,
Yes.
and they were too optimistic for the future, which is good, but still you need to budget and plan ahead. That's the key for
Yes.
success.
And competitive pricing, let's talk a little bit about that from your point of view. Again, when you're doing our cost analysis, pricing is tough. You want to be competitive, but you've got to cover the cost, not only of the supplies, but of the people. How do we find that balance?
Yes, I find that one of the biggest mistakes restaurant owners make is having complicated menu with high cost ingredients. It leads to two major problems. First, you end up carrying expensive inventory that sits sometimes in your fridge and getting closer to expiration date. The second one, those menus require the chefs. You need to have the chef for the full-time shift, and that's a waste of payroll. One of the ways that I suggest to fix this problem is to make few menus through the day. Make a breakfast menu when it's slower and easy one that doesn't require you to have the chef in the morning. That you can use one of your that you can use one of your qualified employees to set up the menu. And then for the evening, you can prepare for this fancy meal with seafood and pasta or whatever requires chef. So be thoughtful of how your day goes. When is the high demand? When is the low demand? When you have the more complicated meals, when people would like to eat those, and keep doing the analysis. I always, you know what, you reminded me. I will share my personal story. And back in the days, long time ago, before college and before accounting, we owned a small restaurant, and we had this great idea. When you're young, you have this great idea. I was saying, okay, let's sell salad that will be in a market cost, but will be bigger. We were a hit. People loved us. We got lots of orders. Things were going well. But the problem was that we didn't have any margin. It was a horrible decision. And the problem was that it took us a while to realize that. It took us long enough to get in a financial struggle to understand that we're doing something wrong because work was going on. We were running around selling, but money wasn't good from that. So one of the ways that we fixed it, we shifted to a cheaper menu to lower cost portions. We advertise those and things get better in the end of the day. But I wish somebody was there for me to say, hey, you're not smarter than others. What are you doing? Don't do that. Whatever it is, don't cut to your margin. That's a mistake. Things One of the things that we do, we stay ahead of the numbers. We check the numbers, we analyze, and we raise the flag.
And these days, pricing is even more complicated with inflation pressures, with new tariffs being talked about all the time, some coming on, some not. So we're fearful of them. We want to plan for them. We don't know if they're coming or not. How do we adjust for these things?
For inflation?
Yes.
Well, we don't need to be afraid for the first time, maybe do the portions a little bit smaller and replace very expensive ingredients because some of the ingredients are having their prices rises faster than others. Check in the vendors for cheaper supply chain. Always there's somebody new. Always there's somebody new in the market that gives you those promotions and helps you with that. Being thoughtful of payroll expense again because it's part of it. Maybe it's not directly in the food industry, but staying conscious of that. And in some point, there's no way from taking the prices up a little bit to adjust to the market.
Right.
There's no way to stay in the business without that.
Yeah. The smaller portions has been a real challenge for many places because it becomes so obvious to the customer that they used to pay $5 for this and look how much smaller it is. So it's a real challenge, isn't it?
It is a challenge, yeah, to stay competitive, but save your margins. It is a challenge, but you still can do it. I see people doing that. You have those American food bars. The portions are huge. Nobody even finishes it. So there you have to cut. If it's a chef restaurant and and you need a microscope to look for your portion already, so don't cut on the side. On something else. Look for better vendors. Look at what else you can do. Maybe assemble your portions in a different way that doesn't require 3 chefs in your kitchen, and you can use only 1 chef with helpers. Be creative. Think outside of the box.
Very good. Well, let's talk about you and your business and your creative approach. You've really honed your specialty from just traditional bookkeeping services to really focusing on restaurants, bars, catering, and such. Why did you decide to do that? And what about your background and expertise allowed you to do that?
That's a funny story. It just happened by itself. I own an MBA. My husband does accounting and finance, but somehow through the years, we were handling different fields. We realized how much we love the food industry. I bet it's from our past. We carry it from our past when we had the restaurant. It stays with you. It sticks with you. And the beauty of that is how we understand this industry, how we love this industry, and how we pay attention to the small details of this industry. That's the difference between us and those big accounting firms that provide services to all fields. They don't know to shine the light on what's important, particularly to the food guys. And I can show you multiple examples. How was it important through our way? Let's take the pandemic, the recent one. It was a disaster for the food industry in the beginning because everything was locked. People thought that they're going to lose their businesses, their restaurants, and that's it. But then came all those regulations and the TPP relief and the EIDL, and you had to be fast. So I know a few businesses, at least, that had to get rid of their old bookkeepers because they just couldn't, and it was hectic. I do understand. I was part of that. Every couple days, you had new regulations, new laws, new rules, new reports were needed to get those funds. And people just couldn't stay with the temp. And it's important. With the food industry, you have to stay pat on different fronts.
That's right. And
Finance also. The other part is the regulation. You know how much regulation the food industry faces. The liquor regulation, the food regulation, the licensing, especially the alcohol license. It's a very important part of the industry. In some states, missing a bill to your vendor, to your alcohol vendor, can put your license on pause, and missing it a few times to make your license be suspended. We take it very serious. So we make sure you stay on top of it, and you pay your bills on time, and you're all set with the licensing, and you don't have any bumps on your way. We basically will let you concentrate on what you like, on running the business and managing, and give you the backup with the finance to be able to have more time.
Yeah.
The cash flow, I already mentioned it. Technology, all the softwares, the integration, the IA, it's a big, big thing that everybody talks about it. If you open Google, you will see how many proposals you get to automate, to make your business easier with all those automatic things. They just forget to say, when they suggest you to get an inventory software, they forget to say that you need to hire a full-time person just to put in the data, because if it's garbage in, it's garbage out. And I've seen businesses that get in a bad advice because of the bad data. By the end of the day, you pay fortune for that. You pay for the software, you pay for the person, and you get a wrong report. So it's important to know how to navigate what good, what worth the price, things like that. Things like that make my job interesting, let's say.
Well, there you go. And,
Yeah.
and from a creative standpoint, how have you marketed your practice to attract more of these food industry clients?
Well, honestly, in the beginning, it was just an advice. Some owners just introduced me to their friends because finally they were happy with the service. And it was a bumpy road for them. They tried different approaches. They hired somebody in office. They tried to outsource to companies. The problem with the companies is that you get to, they promise you that you will have a one representative. But by the end of the day, you get those bookkeepers that bounce you around and ask you for more and more paperwork. And it's very hard to work with them because it's hard to run a restaurant, to run a shift, and deal with all those long emails, exhausting emails. So they were happy with our services because our organization built in a different way. And me and my husband, we provide the direct communication with the clients, and they just recommended us. And then I realized that I have something in the packet. And now with the era of the digital world, with all the social media, I decided that I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try to podcast, tell more about everything I know. I'm sure many people will find this information useful for themselves.
That's terrific. And we've been talking about your past experience and what we can learn from cash flow and cost analysis and these other things. Now let's look ahead a little bit. Restaurants have to stay obviously on the edge of food trends and customer service trends, but are there any supply chain, labor costs, accounting strategies that you're seeing coming over the horizon that we need to keep our eye on?
Yeah, I keep saying all the time the same things. Pay attention to your labor cost. Labor cost is important. By the way, today with everything being on the computers, it's easy. You just run the correct reports and you can see the obvious trends. You put it in a graph or in a simple table, and you can get a good advice from that and understand the trends of their business. Cost management is important. Try to understand and analyze and which if you should have this inventory in your fridge if you use it only for a couple hours in the evening. So try to downsize the expensive things. Keep the simple menu going on as well. What else? What else is great advice? Diversify your revenue. You don't have to stick to the traditional dine-in system. Today, digital orders are with Uber Eats and everything. It's so important to stay competitive. You can get an extra revenue just by doing food delivers, curbside pickup. it will expand your revenue. You know what? Finally, financial planning, I think that's the key. That's the key. Stay on top of the new trends, keep doing your research, keep using your consulting team, keep doing your analysis. That will give you a stable balance through the year with the income versus the expenses. Take a look at those reports we send. It's important.
Wow, this is great. Marta, I can't thank you enough for all this good insight and sharing your experience. I've enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
My guest has been Marta Grumberg of Grumberg Accounting, and her website is grumbergaccounting.com. And definitely, as she was saying, Marta is posting some great tips and insights on her LinkedIn. So be sure to go on her LinkedIn and connect. And come back again next time, listeners. We're going to continue these round the world journeys. And it's all thanks to our sponsor, White Cloud Coffee Roasters. When you go to whitecloudcoffee.com, you'll see their wide selection of specialty coffees, single origin organics, and you can enjoy a 10% discount off your order when you use the code word creativity at checkout. So visit whitecloudcoffee.com. And come back for our next episode as we continue our exploration with authors and singer-songwriters and all sorts of people from creative industries about how they get inspired and how they organize their ideas, and most of all, how they gain the confidence and the connections to launch their work out into the world. Until next time, I'm Mark Stinson, and we'll keep unlocking your world of creativity. Bye for now.